of the standoff. There was one
not
end
significantly,
step.
yeah. There was technically mana generated.
Green Sun Zenith for 0, getting Dryad Arbor for Andrew Jessup. So this time, Nate will get to have his extra mana.
Yeah, Jessup not presenting his own Shaman and 2 fetch lands in the graveyard already.
Like the style points here for Andrew Jessup. If you're gonna register elves, might as well play it in a green sleeved deck.
If you're familiar with Andrew Jessup at all, you probably put him on elves anyway.
Cataxian Probe from Nate Barton. We see Andrew's hand. He has Glimpse of Nature, Abrupt Decay, Wirewood Symbiote, Craterhoof Behemoth, and 2 lands.
Now, this is actually a pretty weak hand for Jessup. He has a Glimpse that he can't do too much with and a removal spell. An 8 mana spell, it doesn't matter until he's very well developed.
Ponder from Nate Barton. I mean, he'd love to find, I guess, something like a Wirewood Symbiote would be very good to go, or an Elvish Visionary to go with his Symbiote.
Well, but Elvish Visionary is just really the workhorse of the Elves deck.
It's just the best card in the deck.
Yeah, it's the glue. So I suppose Elvish Visionary is the card that was most likely to just exist on the timeline. The oddball, why did they print that card, is kind of the Wirewood Symbiote. That card is just so strange.
Yeah, it's a bug that bounces. It's a bug that makes elves go back to your hand.
The fact that returning a creature to your hand is the cost.
You don't really get that much anymore.
I drafted elves and Eternal Masters, and I played against somebody who was very angry.
They kept trying to respond to Symbiote by killing your elves?
Yeah.
Yeah. I've done.
They were
took
not
me a while
happy
to
about
learn.
that.
Yeah, can't do that. That does feel strange that that's a cost.
It's just very bizarre, extremely unintuitive. But this is Legacy, where everything goes. 3 mana 3/3s win the game.
3 mana 3/3s win the game, but like 2 mana 6/7s just not even seen play anymore.
Lands destroy other lands.
Wasteland will take care of Dryad Arbor. Deathrite Shaman will exile away the Dryad Arbor and cast Delver of Secrets. Another glimpse drawn by Andrew. This is not what he wants to be seeing.
No. Might even just want to cycle one of these, realistically.
Yeah, he can glimpse into Wirewood Symbiote.
I suppose getting one of these threats out of the table with the Abrupt Decay, you should probably prioritize a little bit higher than that. He does have 3 lands. If he peels another creature, he could potentially actually draw 2 cards with the value Glimpse.
See, he goes for it. He has the Bayou in hand, so if he wants the Abrupt Decay, he'll just play that. A fetch land means he's probably going for the first Glimpse. But there are a lot of these cards here, you know, the Craterhoof Behemoth so far off. Bayou and Go by Jessup. This represents the Abrupt Decay, though it gives him time to wait to decide which creature he wants to decay. Delver of Secrets will stay a 1/1 this turn as Nate draws Misty Rainforest.
There's not a ton going on in Barton's hand either.
No, he's got Lightning Bolt, Force of Will, and it might just be lands other than that. A swing with Delver of Secrets will deal 1. Andrew will then Abrupt Decay it. Choosing to take care of Delver over Deathrite Shaman. And you were saying that you mentioned before that Deathrite is, or the Delver is the better 1-drop in this matchup.
It just closes the game faster. The Shaman requires mana to activate when it's actually dealing damage. Barton already very easily has access to all of his colors as well.
Here's the workhorse himself, Elvish Visionary for Andrew Jessup. He does have enough mana to cast both it and the Symbiote this turn.
Yeah. Yeah, that or just some 1-mana elf to try to go for a value Glimpse are really the better things that he could have drawn on this turn.
Elvish Visionary and a draw. And Andrew, interesting, he's just going to say go here. He has that land. He could have made Symbiote, but he's declining it. This is because of his glimpses?
Yeah, he has 2 glimpses, and he can't really do much with them anyway. Certainly on the following turn, being able to resolve a glimpse and symbiote, he can just recast the visionary if he misses entirely otherwise.
Yeah, what that's showing me here is that the pace of this game really is a slower one, and Andrew's recognizing that. A lot of times in Legacy, you feel the need to spend all your mana each turn because, you know, if the game's decided by turn 4, you better do as much as you can in the first 3. Andrew's he is max valuing his cards very hard here. You know, he could have, for example, there, cast Glimpse of Nature and then cycled one off the Salvage Visionary, and he says, no, that's fine, we want more.
Yeah, and that's what gonna separate the experienced Elves players from the lesser, so is recognizing that, yes, it's a turn 3-ish combo deck, but also you have staying power. You have a lot of cards that draw a card. You're totally capable of playing these longer games. Displaying just an excellent amount of patience here.
Andrew's going to go ahead and get Dryad Arbor on Nate's end step. Nate flooding out some here. He's dealing 2 a turn with Deathrite Shaman, but not doing much else. You know he has a Force of Will in hand. I guess starting on the next turn, he'll be able to just hard cast it.
Well, hard casting Force of Will is never where you want to be, and certainly when you don't have a clock to accompany it.
Jessup going to cast Glimpse of Nature. This is his 4th turn. He has the 4th land drop in hand. Suppose just something simple. Wirewood Symbiote, draw a card, bounce Visionary, cast Visionary, draw a card, draw a card.
He still just has the other Glimpse of Nature in hand.
Right. Second Glimpse of Nature for Andrew Jessup. Oh boy.
Yeah.
And you see he got Dryad Arbor here so that when he uses Wirewood Symbiote to untap a creature, he can actually untap the Dryad Arbor.
It also just gives him another creature if he ends up drawing a Gaia's Cradle to be his land drop for the turn.
Sure, yeah, that's why he hasn't made a forest just yet. But now going to go ahead and make the land drop.
He makes the land drop so that the symbiote doesn't get dazed.
Sure. That's a card that Grixis certainly plays as well. He's going to get the 2 cards off the symbiote regardless of whether it resolves or not. Yeah,
so the glimpses will have replaced themselves, so it's not clear that they'll do much more. We'll find out if Barton wants to fight over this symbiote here.
Right, so he gets 2 cards before symbiote is down.
Yeah, the Kamigawa block has a bad reputation of having a low power level, but a number of legacy staples coming from this set. Glimpse of Nature, Sensei's Divining Top.
Draws Llanowar Elves, Natural Order.
Godo Bandit Warlord.
I don't know why Kamigawa gets such a bad rap. It's got a ton of playables. Umezawa's Jite.
Yeah.
Boseiju, who shelters all. Oh my man, this could be a full combo turn. It is Llanowar Elves drawing 2 cards, and he drew into Heritage Druid, and this is dangerous. You see Wirewood Symbiote going to untap that Dryad Arbor, bouncing an elf.
Well, the way the things have played out, Barton couldn't have done too much by force of willing any of these spells, really.
Now, there's not actually 3 elves, so Heritage Druid may be the end of the chain here. We'll cast Wirewood Symbiote again, though. 2 more cards. Second one. Sure, that one's basically free. Yeah, and he's not trying to go off here. He's just drawing up 100 cards.
And he's under virtually no pressure from Barton, so drawing all these cards should make it not terribly difficult for Jessup to win the game from here.
Bounces Llanowar Elves to untap Dryad Arbor, and in response, Barton's going to Lightning Bolt the Dryad Arbor. So that's going to end the turn for Jessup. He's got 8 cards in hand. Some of his draws were weak here. He actually has 3 copies of Natural Order. There's just no way that does anything?
Yeah, you really only need one of those.
I believe Andrew's going to have to discard at the end of the turn here.
The natural orders are a pretty free discard.
The third one is, for sure.
Yeah.
And that's what he'll discard. Barton dealing 2 more damage on end step with Deathrite Shaman. He's got a long ways to go, though Andrew is still at 14. For Barton, he draws Brainstorm. It's a blue card for his Force of Will, and actually, yeah, so he can also just make a 5th land drop and then hard cast a Force of Will.
He would like to have something besides Force of Will going on, though.
So he's going to Brainstorm, hopefully, to find something new here.
Daze is late to the party.
Yeah, Daze is late. Picked up a Lightning Bolt there and a Ponder. Has a fetch land in hand, so this is going to be a quality Brainstorm.
Yeah, he can go through a lot of cards here. He has a ton of ground to make up, though. Jessup with 7 cards in hand and plenty of lands on the battlefield.
Two lands back on top of the deck. And with that fetch land in play, he'll reset. Just not call it out until we see it again. Deciding on the land he wants here. Still has that, we know, Force of Will, Ponder, Lightning Bolt.
The thing about Lightning Bolt versus 2 Wirewood Symbiotes, yes, it's true that the Symbiote can't bounce the other one, but then there's still just that effect is on the table.
Yeah, damage is also done here. Remember, Andrew was discarding to hand size last turn.
And to be fair, some of his cards are a bit redundant in a way that makes it so it seems he technically has fewer cards, 2 natural orders and a Craterhoof Behemoth.
Right.
But he still has plenty of stuff besides that.
Yeah, I mean, right, the danger is that Andrew just has a very honest, well, maybe honest is the wrong word. Next turn can simply just play out, like, play a land, play 3 elves, Heritage Druid, Elvish Visionary, Land War Elves, tap them for some mana, has a pretty good turn. Bounce Visionary, replay. This is
the other thing that's happening here is that Grixis Delver's position, it's about pressure plus interaction.
He doesn't have the pressure.
Exactly. That equation is incomplete.
Here is a Ponder from Nate Barton. Looks like he's got Force. Yeah, he looks at the top 3. There was a Deathrite Shaman in the top 3, and that's enough for him to keep. Picks up a 2nd Lightning Bolt. I do like that. He's going to bolt down a Symbiote. And I believe bolt down the other Symbiote.
Yeah, that makes it so future removal spells will be live on elf creatures.
Yeah, I kind of like this line. I mean, I'm not sure what he's supposed to be bolting if not for those. On Andrew's side, I think Andrew's pretty okay with those getting bolted. You see he picked up Gaia's Cradle this turn. I mean,
well, that's exactly it. That's the play that Barton has to make, but
it's not a winning play.
Exactly.
Right, here goes, Andrew's just going to reload. Here's Elvish Visionary, draw a card. He's got plenty of mana, plenty of cards. This hasn't really slowed him down. It's one of the draws of elves here is that it's hard to beat elves with just a stack of 1-for-1 removal.
Right.
When you see Miracles play this matchup, it's not the Swords to Plowshares that win the game, it's the Terminus.
The only other line Barton could have realistically gone for is to just send Lightning Bolts upstairs. Jessup still at 14, though. If you give him access to Symbiote, Elvish Visionary, it's pretty easy to turn any hand into a very quality hand.
That's what you're saying back that turn where he decayed the Delver Secrets. If the Delver had been in play, Nate could have sent those bolts upstairs. This would be a different game.
Right.
And Andrew's still just so much patience. Plays Visionary, Land War Elves. He could have sacrificed the fetch land to get Heritage Druid on the board. Just no interest.
He also has Gaia's Cradle in hand, so fetching this to find the 2nd Dryad Arbor is pretty good for him.
Absolutely. Deathrite Shaman will attack.
Yikes.
Another Deathrite from Barton. Says go. 2 cards in hand. I believe it's Force plus blue card. And Andrew not even going to get the other Dryad Arbor, just finds another Bayou. He's not that far from just casting Craterhoof off of mana.
Well, he's certainly already there to cast Natural Order. Bad news, he drew his second Craterhoof Behemoth.
Yeah, he only plays 2, so actually that was a horrible draw for Andrew.
Yeah.
He now has 2 Natural Orders, 2 Behemoths in hand, so the Natural Orders...
All they'll do is trade
fine.
down on mana.
Yeah, they're like their toolbox now. They they can find an Elvish Visionary. And we're gonna play Heritage Druid, tap 3 elves for 3 green, a land for 3 more green, 2 more mana, and that's gonna make 8. Here's the first of Craterhoof Behemoth.
Can't let that one resolve.
Interestingly enough, all the other creatures are tapped, so this is just an 8/8, a 9/9 trample.
That's it, though.
I mean, he could take the hit.
And then die to the second Craterhoof on the following turn.
Yeah, you can't have it all.
His hand is exactly Force of Will Daze. You can't daze it because of that untapped Bayou.
Yeah, I mean, it's not really like he's discarding a card to force. Daze wasn't a card. So he does force away the Craterhoof. Goes down to 14, but Nate Barton now empty-handed. And you see a ton of ways to reload. Andrew's hand has 2 Natural Orders and then the second Craterhoof. Never mind, if, say, Nate draws a card that counters the second Craterhoof, how does Andrew win? They don't come back from the graveyard. Once they're there, that's where they stay.
He kind of just has to assemble a large squad of 1/1s. If he's able to get Symbiote on the battlefield, he can return a creature blocked by a Deathrite Shaman to his hand before damage and chip in a lot of damage that way.
Deathrite Shaman from Andrew Jessup. Go back to his turn. And Nate had drawn a card. I suppose he could hard cast a Force of Will if he drew one. That would be his best draw here. And you see, here comes the second Craterhoof being cast off Gaia's Cradle. And this one is very lethal. And Nate, he's exiling lands. I think did he do it? Did he draw the Force?
He's moving like he did.
We might see Andrew have to really, yeah. He did. But yeah, Andrew, forgetting his Deathrite had Summoning Sickness, tried to deny mana, but no, Force of Will counters the second Craterhoof. So now we're going to get to see the real scrappy wins from Elves. There's no hoofs left, no way to get them back in the deck.
So now the most aggressive card in his deck is Face Down Birchlow Rangers, of which he plays 1 copy.
Nettle Sentinels a 2/2. He swings, puts Nate down to 12. What'll be interesting is to see whether or not he can actually race these 2 Deathrite Shamans. As 1/2s, they're great blockers. Nate just said go. He would actually like to have a second black mana here.
Things are going to get weird.
Yeah.
Yeah, Nate can actually only activate 1 Shaman for a non-mana ability a turn.
And look at this, Peter. Andrew, not phased by losing his Craterhoofs. He immediately Natural Orders the Llanowar Elves way. I assume he's getting Symbiote. He's just going to start Symbiote Visionarying.
Symbiote, Visionary, and Nettle Sentinel are the 3 kind of reasonable targets that he has with this.
So in response, it's going to be Deathrite Shaman getting rid of a land. Deathrite Shaman getting rid of a land. Is this another Force of Will by Nate? That land was denied. So Nate did not, only got 4 mana, not 5. Then he just says, okay, I'm not doing anything with it.
Yeah.
Peculiar line there. We're actually starting to get low on lands in graveyards. I believe there's 2 left in Nate's graveyard, and that's it.
Yeah, there's certainly not a lot. There's that Wasteland. There's at least 1 fetch land.
Right. Scavenging Ooze as the 1-of. That's what Andrew Jessup's going to get off Natural Order. And actually...
No shortage of creatures in the graveyard here.
This is great. 4 green already available. Yeah, look at all these creatures. So while Andrew's going to immediately exile a ton of creatures, so he wants to get that out of bolt range.
Yes.
So Scavenging Ooze up to a 4/4. Attacks for 2. Barton down to 10. This is a grind, but it's going to work.
Yeah, Barton's going to need to find...
Does he have Fatal Push?
He has that sideboard Fatal Push. That's his only copy.
Yeah, we're too late for Dismember. Does he have a copy of Baleful? No, we're not. Yeah, Baleful Strix. Maybe.
He has 2 in the sideboard. This is not an exceptional matchup for that card.
Gurmag Angler. He's likely going to want to exile away his own creatures if he has any left.
Yeah. He's also got to be a little concerned about his life total. Jessup does have 2 Bayous.
Oh, just to activate Deathrite Shamans?
Right.
Yeah. Jessup has more black mana than Barton. So he... You're not wrong. Well, the issue is if Nate tries to race also... Yeah, Jessup's just... This Scavenging Ooze is going to be very tough to overcome. Just needs the Fatal Push or... Yeah, or Strix.
Scavenging Ooze is not the conventional big find off your natural order, but it's mighty strong here.
If Barton has boarded in his one true name Nemesis, that I don't believe Andrew can ever remove it as a blocker.
Yeah, it'll hang out as a blocker. Jessup will be able to gain a lot of life, though.
Yeah, you see just going to work with that Scavenging Ooze. He's going to exile as many creatures as he can, really. With each creature the Scavenging Ooze eats, it gets a 1/1 counter, and Andrew gains 1 life. Okay, so now a 6/6 Ooze on the board. It's not out of range of being gang blocked yet. If Nate pushes everything in front of it, the Ooze would die, and I don't think Jessup would take that trade.
Yeah, just the Craterhoof left over for creatures. Barton has maintained the Wasteland and the Polluted Delta in his graveyard, so he can use a Shaman to make a green and target that with his Shaman. The Ooze can just eat it again.
Yeah,
so I suppose Andrew ends up winning that fight, though the triple block makes it so he at least gets to eat it in combat.
Yeah, and that's why I think why we didn't see Andrew. You saw he didn't use that 1 green mana at the end of Nate's turn was out of respect for that line. But he has a ton of mana now. 3 green off the Heritage Druid and 4 more off Gaia's Cradle. It's going to be another natural order. So 3 floating. Sacrifices Heritage Druid, conveniently putting another creature in the graveyard. Getting Wireward Symbiote. So now we're going to see that Symbiote Visionary interaction. No Craterhoof, no problem for Andrew Jessup.
Yeah, he's doing a great job of navigating this game. This is not what a regular Elves game looks like.
Oh, this is great. Spends 1 of his 3 floating green to cast Glimpse of Nature. This is so much value. Brings back Elvish Visionary to untap Deathrite Shaman. Casts Visionary, draws off Glimpse, draws off Visionary. Drew a Heritage Druid. All right. Keep this going. Heritage Druid draws a card. 2 green copies of Green Sun Zenith. He actually might be able to just combo off here. Makes 3 green. Well, Green Sun for 2.
He can make a lot of elves. The thing is, he can't Craterhoof from here.
For 1. Green Sun X equals 1.
But he can go really wide and draw a lot of cards.
Yeah, finds Wirewood Symbiote. A 2nd copy. This is the last Symbiote. The other 2 are in the graveyard, so he has no more of these left. Use a Symbiote ability. Bounce Elvish Visionary, untap Deathrite Shaman. This is just game 2. Uses the floating mana and his basic force to cast Visionary. Draws a card off Glimpse, draws a card off Visionary. Finds another 1-drop here, and it's an elf. Well, that seems pretty great. That's going to be his 3rd elf in play. So more mana at the ready. Here is Creon Ranger, draws a card.
This is the last call to register for our 1 p.m. standard challenge. We do need at least 1 more player to be able to get that event started. So
picks up another Elvish Visionary. Sure, we'll keep doing this too. 3 green. 1 floating Elvish Visionary, draw 2 cards.
Yeah, and with Barton at 10, just making a whole bunch of 1/1s makes finding a lethal attack not terribly difficult.
Might be end of the line here. He's got an Abrupt Decay and a Green Sun Zenith to keep the card draw going. Gonna play land for a turn. That's a 2nd Gaia's Cradle. Just kidding about this being the end of things. Gaia's Cradle, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. It's 8 mana. So 9 green. Let's make that 9 green and 1 black. He'll cast Abrupt Decay on a Deathrite Shaman. Down to 8 green floating. Nate will take care of the Gaia's Cradle. And Andrew's going to use the green mana to eat the Gaia's Cradle in response. No, does not want Nate having any mana. So 7 green still floating. Andrew's going. 1 glimpse of nature has resolved this turn. I'm not sure how much more he can keep this going. He's got some greens on Zeniths in hand, but he has 2 symbiotes in exile and 2 symbiotes in play, and that's the find that keeps that happening.
Think about this position. He doesn't
really need
to
more.
get to a critical mass of elves to actually make it a lethal anything. So at this point, with the symbiotes in play, he can actually just attack with a bunch of elves, and anything that's blocked, he can bounce it before damage, or let it hit the bin and then just eat it with a Scavenging Ooze, and the Scavenging Ooze doesn't have to worry about being killed in combat.
Spends the rest of his green mana into Scavenging Ooze to make it a 9/9. He goes to 20, and he will swing. Not lethal, but it would put Barton down to 1, so Deathrite Shaman will chump block.
Yeah, there's just no good blocks here. It's chump or, pretty much die.
And Andrew says go. Nate draws a card, but he's at 10 facing down a very large army of elves. 1 ponder left here, and unless he's got something like Damnation that we don't know about, I don't see a way out for him.
Well, if he had a Damnation, I would bring it to the attention of a judge.
Yeah, he does not have on his board.
On his deck list.
Sometimes I think, and this is where elves just seems like such a brilliant choice this weekend. In the past, in these black control decks, even in Delver decks, we might see something like Damnation, Engineered Plague, Night of Souls Betrayal, Engineered Explosives, something that can clean this up. But Nate has nothing of that sort.
Yeah, even just the efficient 1-for-1s. Like I was saying before, Submerge is really good. Well, Rough Tumble is like another haymaker. But I mean, this deck is even light on 1-for-1 interactions. Just 1 Fatal Push came in off the sideboard. Lightning Bolts beyond that. There's no Forked Bolt. That card's kind of disappeared from the format.
Well, its interaction is Baleful Strix, and that's really popular this weekend. And like I said, I think that's why Elves is so great right now.
Right. Yeah, nobody's gunning for Elves. Jessup just making it look easy.
Yeah, and so it's not just Andrew. Looking at our metagame breakdown, this is available over at StarCityGames.com. We have it posted on our coverage page. Elves is the 3rd most popular deck to make it into Day 2. That's crazy for Legacy.
Yeah.
69 players in the Day 2 field, 5 of them on Elves.
That's a high number for Elves. Yeah, I would have certainly taken the under on 4.5.
The only 2 decks with more copies into Day 2, Miracles and 4-color Control. Which you would expect those to be 1 and 2.
Yes.
We go back to Andrew. It's going to swing everything. Nate has to block the Ooze. When he doesn't, he's going to take a ton. Well, but I guess he'll hit 6 pokes off 1/1s. Oh, might have a kill, so it looks like he's going to block the Symbiote. There's the Fatal Push. Did find the answer.
Okay. That's something.
He's going to lose more slowly now.
Yeah.
Fatal Push on Scavenging Ooze.
Certainly not out of the woods. Jessup, of course, by activating Scavenging Ooze a bunch of time, he's at 20 life.
So Barton takes 5 off unblocked creatures. And there's looks to be 2 more with that Deathrite Shaman. 2 more on the next turn, plus another swing. It is still lethal. Andrew's going to immediately exile the Fatal Push. Does not want any Snapcaster top decks getting in the way.
Once again, players, we need 1 more.
Oh, this is nice. Bounces land to untap Deathrite Shaman. Exiles another card, puts Nate to 1.
And picks up the Quirion Ranger.
To untap the Elf. Let's do it a 3rd time. So talked about I was dead next turn. Well, Andrew sees it. Why wait till next turn? 3 Deathrite Shaman activations will finish off the game. 2-0 again. Andrew has not dropped a game on camera. He's not dropped a match in the tournament.